This is Tales and Whispers, where every story is felt, not just heard.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a late-night Hollywood mystery that actually reveals a pretty profound lesson about human dignity. You know, we usually think of a celebrity's legacy in terms of massive box office numbers or shiny awards, but sometimes the absolutely most impactful things happen completely behind the scenes, far away from all those flashing cameras. So let's just get right into this incredibly moving story. It starts with a single piece of paper and really expands into a lifelong lesson on how we treat one another.
Picture this. It's midnight. You're sitting in a completely empty production office, and there's just a single desk lamp illuminating the desk of a really exhausted production manager. He's scanning through standard, honestly pretty boring Hollywood contracts. He's checking the usual stuff, shooting schedules, financial penalties, the standard legal jargon. But then, right on the very last page, he hits this bizarre final clause that makes him stop dead in his tracks. This clause doesn't ask for a bigger trailer or, a private chef. Instead, it explicitly demands that the production company must hire individuals experiencing homelessness for the project. And we aren't just talking about standing them in the background as extras. No, the clause demands real, paid crew jobs: catering, set design, transportation, the whole shebang.
Obviously, the production manager is stunned. He immediately assumes, okay, this has got to be a typo. He picks up the phone, calls the lawyer, and asks if someone just made a crazy mistake drafting the document. The lawyer's response is incredibly calm and exact. It's not a mistake, it's the artist's condition. That artist, as the manager quickly learns, is none other than Robin Williams. The producer lets out a long sigh and mutters a phrase we've probably all used when faced with a sudden, unfamiliar task. Well, where do we find them? This quiet midnight discovery was a real game changer.
Section 1. George's story on set.
Because, let's be real, a contract clause is just ink on paper until you actually put it into practice. The morning after that midnight realization, a production van pulls up to a local shelter that assists people without a fixed address. The doors open, and 12 individuals step out onto a real Hollywood set. They're cautious. Their eyes show this mix of hesitation and just a deep, simple desire, the hope for just one single day without humiliation. Among them is a man named George. George had been sleeping on the streets for months. On that first day on set, nobody really knew how to interact with him, and he definitely didn't know how to interact with a bustling movie set. But within just an hour or so, a shift happened. He stopped being the homeless guy and became just another part of the production team. When lunchtime rolled around, someone even tossed him an extra sandwich, not out of pity, but just because he'd been working so hard that morning.
Then, at the end of that long shooting day, George lines up and receives his actual wages. He steps away from the loud, busy crew to find a quiet little corner. He pulls out a phone to make a call, and his voice is incredibly low, almost a whisper, but the words he speaks are crystal clear and just immensely powerful. He simply says, "I worked today." That scene wasn't captured on any movie camera. It wasn't blasted out in some PR or press release, but is the exact type of quiet, dignified decision that fundamentally changes a human life without making any noise.
Section 2. The truth behind viral numbers. Now, we live in the internet age, so stories like this tend to take on a life of their own. It's our job to look at what the actual sources tell us so we can separate the Hollywood myth from the documented facts. If you spend any time online, you've probably seen the viral posts claiming that Robin Williams demanded exactly 10 homeless people be hired per movie, resulting in a super specific total of 1,520 hires over his career. It sounds incredible, right? But we have to look at the data. According to investigations by ASUSA, there aren't actually any contracts or production certificates to verify those exact numbers. The reporting suggests that this highly specific math was likely exaggerated over time, probably snowballing across social media from an old story attributed to a party promoter. But here's the thing. Just because the exact math of the internet rumor isn't verifiable, absolutely does not mean the core of the story is false. Actually, scratch that, it's quite the opposite. As reported by People.com, recent testimonies from Robin Williams' own daughter, Zelda Williams, confirmed the absolute truth of his actions. She verified that her father actively mandated hiring homeless individuals for his various projects and his comedy tours. So while the internet might have inflated the statistics a bit, the heart of the Robin Williams clause was incredibly real and actively enforced by the man himself.
Section 3. A documented history of support.
This practice of hiring the unhoused wasn't just some secret, one-off contract clause for a single movie. It was part of a lifelong, deeply documented mission to fight homelessness. His advocacy was super public and persistent. According to People.com, long before these internet rumors ever started, Robin Williams actually testified at a 1990 Senate hearing specifically focused on preventing homelessness before it happens. He was actively pushing lawmakers to look at the root of the problem. Plus, the Los Angeles Times extensively documented his incredible work alongside Billy Crystal and Whoopi Goldberg in the comic relief specials. Together, through these massive comedic events, they raised over $80 million to support programs for the homeless. He used his platform, his money, and his contracts to fight this battle from literally every conceivable angle.
Section 4. Dignity through employment.
So what does this all mean for us? Exploring this source material isn't just about admiring a beloved actor. It's about extracting a lesson that we can apply to the real world right now. The crucial point we pull from these sources is that the absolute most powerful form of help isn't always dropping a charitable donation into a bucket. Sometimes the ultimate help is simply the decision to employ someone. If you're a business owner, a manager, or even if you're just in charge of hiring one single person, you can apply this today. Make space for someone who has fallen entirely outside the traditional job market. When you interview them, don't look for a perfectly polished resume. Look for seriousness. Look for a willingness to try. Commit to providing them with basic training, treat them with absolute respect, and most importantly, pay them a respectable living salary.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Well, I don't own a business, and I don't hire anyone. Even if you aren't the one making those hiring decisions, you can still absolutely champion this cause. You have tremendous power in how you spend your money and who you advocate for. You can actively choose to support, buy from, partner with, and loudly recommend the businesses in your community that provide these real, dignified opportunities to marginalized people. Your consumer choices can reward the companies that act like Robin Williams did, literally turning everyday transactions into powerful votes for human dignity.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer today. I want to leave you with this final, vital question to chew on as you go about your week. How can you make dignity a habit and not just a campaign? How can you take the spirit of Robin Williams' quiet midnight contract clause, a simple demand for real work and real respect, and make granting human dignity a daily practice in your own life? Thanks so much for joining me to explore this incredible story today.